Welcome to the UK Fantasy Football Show, Goals podcast that discusses many a football fan's favourite pastime. Now, I'm excited for this week because we're approaching the very end of the season and it's all to play for in the battle for the top four, which we'll be analysing in depth along with our FPL teams for the penultimate game week. In our league, however, things look increasingly set in stone. Sam's extended his unimpeachable lead to 100 points clear of Dave even, and 120 points clear of me. So Sam, you must be pretty happy with how you're ending the season.
Yeah, it's gone well. Yeah, Dave had this. He tried a little bit, had a little bit of success, and he clawed maybe 4 or 5 points back. But I'm all about the narrative. I just wanted to keep it interesting for our listeners. But then I just had to put it to bed. A couple of inspired signings, and just stamp down this little wasp on the floor just to maintain my position.
Beautiful metaphor there.
Little wasp, thanks.
Anthony Martial was your king, wasn't he? Did you captain him both times?
Yeah, I've had him the last couple of weeks, or last couple of matches at least, and he's looking good. And he scored one goal that was just a worldie. I've completely forgotten who it was against. Was it against Sheffield United? All these matches are rolling into one now.
It was against, was it Southampton one, or do you mean the one against Palace?
Definitely, that would be the Southampton one then, sorry. And he just smashed it in the top bin. No, it was Sheffield United. And yeah, he's scoring goals that he doesn't normally score. You know, he's the typical Martial finish. He's almost like I'd always thought Michael Owen's finishes were, where he gets played in and just slides it past the keeper. But to see him jink past someone and smash it into the top far corner, there's an extra little step to his game. I think the way him and Rashford and Fernandes as well are linking up is incredibly exciting. And are they the best front three in world football at the moment? That's for other people to suggest.
That's certainly one of the best. I think I'll give you that. The performances have been really good lately, but they have dropped a point finally after that winning streak against Southampton, which is what has made that top four race so tasty, I guess. So that's the plus side. We'll delve into that a little bit more in a bit. Dave, how are you finding your team? You think you've pulled clear a little bit of me, haven't you?
Yeah, you and me both got the same points, didn't we, in the last game week? So it's kind of just been a bit same as usual, really. So it's been a bit frustrating, really, because there were a couple of decisions that I was like 50-50 on making, such as like Mahrez and Sterling, and that backfired on me, and then switching Greenwood to Rashford, and that's backfired. So, if I'd have gone down the opposite route with those two, I could have accumulated quite a lot of points and maybe got a little bit closer to Sam and pulled a bit further away from you. But yeah, it's just been pretty average, really. Pretty average scores. Getting Ings and Jesus in there has kind of kept me ticking over because the rest of the side has been a bit bleak. But just sticking with those United players has kept the points coming in because Fernandes has been great, Martial's been great. So yeah.
Yeah, Martial's
standard, really.
I've been looking at you both with having Martial with quite a bit of envy, but and Willian, who I brought in to kind of be that buffer, he's kind of fallen off. He's had his little hot streak, and now he's back to his usual self, 2 points a game sort of thing. And not the best, but I guess for me it was a positive week in a weird sense. Not very positive, but I was gonna drop Kane for Ings. I think Kane got more points than Ings in the end. So I got kind of lucky there, just due to my forgetfulness of not realising when the game week was starting, as is tradition. So I got 12 points off him, and he was by far my best performer in an otherwise pretty average week. I think the average points for this week were 35. I got 42, but like you take into account all those teams that have kind of stopped playing, then probably is roughly average. So yeah, I mean, I've got a bit of ground to make up now. So the final sort of standings heading into these last 2 game weeks for us three are Sam on 2,065 points, Dave on 1,959, and me on 1,941. So it's pretty much standard fare. This is kind of the situation we've been in now, isn't it, for the past since lockdown started, this has been the status quo.
Yeah, I think none of us have pulled apart or pulled away. I think Dave was a little bit ahead of you. I was, approximately 3 figures ahead of you both.
Approx.
Approx. So yeah, we're just ticking along, aren't we?
Ticking along, yeah.
I've moved up to just in 293,000th in the world now.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn profile later. So I think when lockdown started, it was about 500,000th. Just moving in the right direction.
To give a bit of context for our public show league, which anyone can join at any point by typing in the code on the FPL website of NHC4WZ. Our leader is 183rd in the world. So a little bit of a difference, but he's having an absolute blinder. It's actually a new leader, Graham Wilshaw. The Shola System is his team name. It's a great name. He had a great game week of 73 points. He's now, quick maths here, 30 points clear of second place. So he's got a nice little buffer heading into these last 2 game weeks. Milner and Sam, who's been top for a large portion of 2020, actually, he didn't have a good past couple of game weeks. And although I think heading into the last show we did a week ago, he was 10 points clear at the top, he's now 50 points behind Graham, who has had an absolutely blinding 2 weeks.
He's come out of nowhere. And yet to be 183rd in the world.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Very
impressive, though. And yeah, podcast listeners and YouTube viewers, you can join our league. Test yourself against us. I used to say all season long. Now it's pretty much for a week. But you can hop in, maybe take the thunder at the end if you're a listener who's doing really well and want to usurp Graham or Paul or me and Islam at the top, and go for it. Let's move on then. So this week, our big talking point is the Titanic Champions League battle. At the turn of the year, it was pretty hard to imagine that Leicester, who were battling around the top for the good sort of first half of the year, would be falling away and potentially out the Champions League places. But it's kind of happened in tandem with their falling form has happened in tandem with Manchester United and Chelsea gaining ground. And now the trio are separated by just a single point. Chelsea are third with 63 points, Leicester fourth on 62 points, and Manchester United are level on points with the Foxes. The goal difference that's keeping Brendan Rodgers' side ahead of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side is plus 31 over plus 28. And before we discuss our thoughts on each teams, I just want to very quickly look at the fixtures for each of the 3 teams left. So Chelsea have Liverpool away and then Wolves at home. Leicester have Spurs away and then Manchester United at home. And Manchester United have West Ham at home and, of course, Leicester away. So, Sam, you boldly predicted United would finish third at the start of the season. You've stuck to those guns. You've repeatedly reminded us of those guns. Do you still believe it's going to happen?
Yeah, easy as. I think the form United are in, I'm hoping this weekend they toss off the FA Cup, if I'm honest, and play Ighalo and Lingard and Dan James and give those, especially the front 5, if you will, a bit of a rest, because I think the last couple of games they have looked a little bit leggy towards the end, not been quite as sharp. So yeah, I think they should beat West Ham. I think Liverpool have got to show a little bit of willing and start performing as champions. So I think they will beat Chelsea. I think Wolves will be coming into their final game still desperate to finish 6th, and have another European showing. So yeah, it'll come down to United versus Leicester in the last game.
That'll be a tasty last fixture. Dave, what do you reckon? Who are you fancying for those 2 Champions League places?
I don't know. I've mulled over it, and they're all just kind of. I think Leicester will get in there. I think it's going to be. It just seems like a totally random end to the season, though. Really, United are the form team, aren't they, at the moment?
Why is it a random end to the season?
Because aren't Chelsea and Leicester a bit up and down with their results?
A little bit. I mean, Leicester have just dropped like a stone, really.
Well, they beat Sheffield United, didn't they? Was it 2-0?
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was quite a clinical performance, like I suppose, from them. And they
They've
should have
got
beaten by a
half
lot
the
more,
defence out,
actually.
haven't
Watch.
they?
You what?
They've got half the defence out, and then they got battered by Bournemouth the week before.
Yeah, if you watch those games, the Bournemouth game was a kind of strange one, really, in that they weren't getting battered by Bournemouth at all until Kasper Schmeichel made like a really poor mistake that led to Bournemouth scoring, and then after that they just collapsed. So I wouldn't say they were playing poorly, and then on the opposite side of it, I watched the Sheffield United game, and they absolutely battered Sheffield United. They should have got about 4 or 5 goals in that game. It's a terrible finishing by, I think Harvey Barnes. It was Vardy setting them up left, right, and centre, really. So it was, I think Leicester looked like the stronger one for me. Nothing about Chelsea's convinced me this season, really. I find it amazing that they're actually like third, really. I suppose it's just they've still got a hell of a lot of quality in that team.
They've been like intermittently excellent, haven't they? They've had moments where they've looked really good.
Yeah,
and then
you kind of like, it's like up and down all the time. You're like, one week you watch them, you're like, oh wow, like they look like a real team, and then next week you're just like, yeah, they are poor, aren't they? And you look at some of the players and you think, God, they've been around in the Premier League for a long time, those guys. No wonder they're kind of struggling a little bit now. There's a lot of kind of journeymen, I suppose, as well in that Chelsea side. So it's, but on the contrast, they have got kind of young players coming through, and Frank Lampard's trying to build on that as well. So maybe next season with Timo Werner in the team and some of the signings, they are going to push on even more so. It's probably just a good time for Chelsea, really. It's like transitional period, in that there's a lot of clubs who are struggling with their identity. I think Man United are starting to find that again. Arsenal are in that weird kind of like trying to refine a bit of an identity as a team that works, and coming back to the fore. Spurs are going through this weird, are we in this Mourinho bus or are we not in it? Are we all on board or not? Is this going to ever turn into a real team that's going to compete for anything? So there's a lot of kind of like question marks, I think, around these teams that we associate with the top 6, the top 5 in the Premier League. My money would be on like United securing a Champions League spot, I think, though.
I'm in sort of two minds about it, because I think that Leicester will either beat or hold off Man United in that final match when they're at home with everything at stake. I think they could probably get a result in that. But I think the potential curveball is probably Chelsea, because as we've discussed, they're very inconsistent. They've lost to West Ham and Sheffield United this month, convincingly to Sheffield United as well. I think it was like 3-0 that one. So they have real weaknesses, and they're playing two teams who are potentially, they could easily drop points to them. So that they've got, was it Wolves? Yeah, Liverpool.
Liverpool and Wolves, yeah.
Yeah, so, two top 6 sort of teams, and, they performed well in some of the games against the big teams. Obviously, they beat Man City to hand Liverpool the title not so long ago. But I don't know, it's just such a difficult one to call. So I think if Chelsea manage to get anything from that Liverpool game, they'll be in a good position. But I mean, even if they draw, let's say Leicester and Man United win both of their penultimate games, then they'll be the ones who are in 5th, and everything will be, dependent on that result between Leicester and Man United, and it'll be on a knife edge whatever happens at this stage. But it's certainly interesting. It's good to have something going into the last sort of game of the season at stake. Sometimes it's not always the case.
Come on then, your reputation where your mouths are. What's the 3rd, 4th and 5th going to finish like?
I reckon, I probably think Chelsea are going to pull it off. So I think Chelsea will finish 3rd. I think Leicester will finish 4th, and I think United will finish 5th, because I think United will lose to Leicester. And I think we've discussed this before. It might have not been on the show, but even if Leicester lose to Spurs, which is obviously possible, if they win that match against Man United, they will finish above Man United, unless there is a small chance Man United absolutely hammer West Ham and the goal difference does change. But that is a potential left field curveball. But I do think it'll be Chelsea, Leicester, Man United. But having said that, that doesn't mean that they won't qualify for the Champions League, because ultimately you'd probably say they're favourites for the Europa League. If they win that, then they can get in through the back door, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're wrong. That's your prerogative. I think
I'll go for. You do yours.
Of course, you can copy like you've done all season, yeah? United third, because I can't change that opinion now. I think Chelsea would finish fourth and Leicester would finish fifth.
Then I guess I should go for Leicester finish third, Man United finish fourth, and Chelsea finish fifth. Does that completely set?
Yeah, then we've got all of them.
We all got completely random. Yeah.
No, I can't see Leicester getting. If essentially the arse fell out of them because the keeper made one mistake against Bournemouth, and it all went to pieces. With the pressure of needing to get a result on that last day of the season.
You know what?
Who handles pressure better? Like United aren't great. Look at that game against Southampton. I mean, they just needed to win it, and they wouldn't really be in this situation.
They should have lost because they didn't perform very well. They didn't perform anywhere near as strong as they could do, and have been doing. Yet it was like the last minute Southampton managed to equalise, not win, equalise. So United was still winning the match despite having played so poorly. That's what third place teams are all about.
All right. So for me, one of the sort of difference points here is potentially Vardy, who's a big game player, turned up many a time over the years for Leicester, and he's actually in a pretty hot streak right now. Like, he's scoring a lot of games. He's been bagging the points on FPL. He's one of the form strikers right now. So he could be a difference maker, I guess, for a Leicester team, where pretty much you could map their season out and say Vardy smashing it, Leicester smashing it, Vardy stopped scoring, Leicester doing shit. He's scoring again. Oh, they're back on the up. So if their form is tied intrinsically to Vardy's form, then at the moment you'd say it's looking pretty good. Bournemouth aside, Bournemouth. I mean, that was an absolute aberration of a result. So, and tell you what,
a strange one.
I'll give some credit to Bournemouth because I thought they were going to get smashed 10-1 or something against Man City, but they almost got a point out of it in the end.
They played well in that game.
Only lost 2-1, and in the end it was a completely different result where we got a crazy scoreline. Not even in the Premier League, but it was slightly bizarre. In your league, Dave, in the Championship, between Wigan and Hull, that was the smash of the week.
The 8-0. It was 8-0, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but my favourite thing about that match, it was 1-0 after 25 minutes. Then by half time, it was 7-0.
They'd properly packed it in, haven't they? Oh, fuck off.
Yeah. Amazing.
It's a Sunday League type kind of like collapse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Completely. They were like they'd been out of the pub the night before or something. Oh God, you've had an awful first half, lads.
The hangover hasn't quite kicked in until 25 minutes to go. Oh Jesus, Fred, you run. I'm not fucking running.
Yeah, we've not had a result anything like that in the Premier League so far this season, but I can remember anyway. We've not had anything crazy.
Didn't Southampton lose 9-0?
Oh, I take that back. Yeah, they did. Leicester, obviously, yeah.
I was against Leicester, yeah. Leicester absolutely flying then, weren't they? Yeah. I thought on Vardy, actually, in Leicester, it's like buzzing around my head now. It's like, do you put him back in for a couple of weeks? There are a couple of tough fixtures, though, but that's
I don't know.
Vardy's feels like one that's burnt you before. Like we've said before, it's like those guys who you've kind of gone, right, kept him in your team, and he'll score this week, He's one that's like a bit of a burn.
Do you remember the start of the season? We all had him there, didn't we?
Yeah.
There was a period, how many? Was it 7 matches? He went on a scoring spree of, it might even be 8. Yeah, it was 8. But he scored 12 goals in it. And then he had a massive barren spell. But I'm just looking at, Leicester's results. You can say, when Vardy's performing, Leicester are performing. He scored 4 in lockdown since the restart, which is 4 in 7. Not bad. You take that as an average. But Leicester have drawn with Watford, drawn with Brighton, lost to Everton. They beat Palace. Anyone can do that. Drew with Arsenal, and then lost to Bournemouth, and then have beat Sheffield United. So they've won 2 out of 7.
Yeah, they aren't winning games, but if you think of that, Vardy got that point against Arsenal, for example, which helps essentially rule them out of any sort of distant Champions League chase. The Bournemouth game, as I say, it's an aberration, and it's pretty hard to compare that to everything else because, as Dave says, Schmeichel just gifted them the equaliser and all went horribly downhill from there. You know, he got 2 against Palace, smashed them. I would say it's been more like he's turned his form around in the past sort of like 5 game weeks. Those in sort of maybe 4 game weeks, those earlier ones, I think it was Iheanacho that was scoring for them. He scored when they lost to Everton, and I think it was Brighton they drew 0-0 against, which feels like, about a month ago now. And I'm just looking back here. Yeah, against Watford he didn't score either. So it is very recently that Vardy's been scoring for them. And yeah, they haven't been winning every game, but they've been winning more than they were before. And Bournemouth's side, they look... I know their defence is pretty weak, and that's probably going to be the thing where we sit here in 2 weeks' time or whatever, and we look back and go, state of Leicester's defence, because it isn't in a healthy shape, particularly because of injuries and suspensions, etc. But I still think that they'll beat United. So
I think the Leicester Tottenham game, I think you'll see Tottenham play very deep, because one of the things Sheffield United, one of the mistakes they made was they had this high line and Vardy just kept exploiting it. You could tell they were terrified of it the whole match, really. And obviously Vardy's pace, he just plays along. He plays along the whole line, doesn't he? Like on down the left, through the middle, and then over to the right as well. And he was just setting up. So I mean, it'd be great for the assists on FPL as well, because if he wasn't getting a shot away, he was setting someone else up. But I would imagine, Mourinho is known for it, isn't he? But I'd imagine Tottenham will be thinking, right, okay, let's just stifle them, because that's their only threat, really, just kind of getting through, using a bit of Vardy's pace to break away.
Yeah. How long Soonju banned for?
I'm just going to check his little FPL data here.
Oh no, he's suspended for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it says until 27th of July. Is that?
It's 26th is the final day.
So he's a goner. Pereira doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. Chilwell, unknown return date. Fuchs, didn't realise he was expected back October. So their defence. Their defence is screwed. I think they had a player who is 4 million. If you fancy a cheap Leicester defender, 4 million. He got 12 points against Sheffield United. Got an assist, clean sheet, the bonus of 3 points. Luke Thomas is his name. So he had a nice Premier League debut then. And
they had Wes Morgan come back for only his second start of the season. So he's played 250 minutes all season, and 90 of those were against Sheffield United. Got 8 points.
Got a bonus of 2. These parachuted in cameos are doing all right.
So if it comes down to that final day of the season, it looks like Morgan will likely have to play. He'll have played 3 matches in very quick succession, with little to he won't be in perfect match shape. 3 matches in short succession. I don't know how old he is now, actually, but he's certainly towards the tail end of his career. He's up against Martial, Greenwood, Fernandes, Rashford. It can get ugly. It
could. But I'm going to put that logic aside and just say I still think Leicester. Park that little bit of logic for now. It is all to play for. I don't think... I mean, can Wolves even still reach those guys? I'm just having a quick look here, actually. I'm pretty sure it's between those 3, isn't it? We've not got any outsiders coming in. Let's have a look. Wolves are on 56 points. So they would need a plus 20 swing in goal difference for both Leicester and Man United. So that's not happening. So beneath those 2, it is very much a battle for 6th place between Wolves, Tottenham, Sheffield United and Arsenal. Do you guys have any opinion on who will get that slot? Or
I think Tottenham will.
Really?
Yeah, and I know obviously they are a bit up and down at the moment. The fan base aren't particularly enamoured with the way things are going, but they can still win, and it's almost like a Mourinho special. In my humble opinion, he's not the manager he was, but he's still good at winning stuff. So they've got Leicester. I think that's he'll want a point to prove. Again, I think they can easily win that, and then they've got Palace away on the last day. And if Son and Kane are firing, then I think they'll do it. I'd love the idea of Wolves making it up there again, because I love watching Adama Traore play.
Don't we all? Yeah.
And Jimenez is a quality striker, and I've got two Wolves defenders in my team. So I think I'd like them to win. I'd love Sheffield United to make it the most. But I think, as we've mentioned on previous pods, I think the gas is just going to have completely evaporated for them.
I think it'll be between Wolves, Sheffield United and Arsenal. I do think that Spurs are... I mean, obviously, they beat Newcastle and Kane was scoring and they looked decent in that. But, Newcastle are pretty much feet up, not asked about the rest of the season. So it's pretty difficult to judge teams too heavily against us at the moment. Anyone who has anything left to play for, I think Watford beat us at the weekend. They're going to get ahead of us. I think Tottenham, with the fact they have Leicester in this match coming up, which I do think Leicester will beat them in, and then they have Palace last game of the season. You'd say they could probably beat Palace, but for me, I guess Arsenal are 9th at the moment, but they have two very winnable games against Villa, who are pretty naff at this point, about to go down, and then Watford last game of the season. Watford, if it's possible, they could be safe by this point, so they might actually have nothing to play for. Depending on other results. We haven't actually mentioned it at this point, but this game week hasn't finished yet. What West Ham and Watford play tonight. I don't think any of us have any of their players there, do we?
No.
No. So they're not, unless you've triple captained Antonio again, like that complete madman who got like 78 points from him the other game week, then, you're probably not going to be getting too many points from that match. But I mean, one of those two teams could essentially, I'm just doing some quick maths here, all but mathematically ensure they aren't going to be relegated. What about at the bottom of the table then? Do you reckon Bournemouth and Villa are goners, or do you think one of them can climb and claw their way out?
No, I think they're both goners. I remember when we were talking about this before the season was halted, and I think all of us said we thought Bournemouth were going to go down. Or was it me and Dave said Bournemouth were going to go down and you were adamant they weren't, Miles, and then they went on a massive hot streak. And then seemingly haven't picked it. Yeah, that's 25% of their victory. And then obviously they've not won or hadn't won anymore since, until they beat apparent third place Leicester. So yeah, I think they're done for, both of them. Sadly, I like Villa, I like Bournemouth, but yeah, I think it's just a step too far for them.
It's a bit of a South Coast derby on Sunday between Bournemouth and Southampton. Southampton pretty much have nothing to play for, but have been stubbornly good over the past since lockdown ended. Obviously, getting a point off United was the latest, but Ings has continued to be red hot. So Southampton could essentially deal that sort of fatal blow to Bournemouth. But I think the Bournemouth they potentially got a chance. I mean, if they can get 3 points of that match, then they'll head into the last game week with a bit of a chance. And they have Everton in the final game week. And Everton are pretty crap. They only just got a point against Villa. And they're only 3 points ahead of Newcastle, which is a damning indictment considering we've not been particularly great this year. So that is another winnable match for them.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a shame. I'm not really a massive fan of Bournemouth. That's largely due to a bit of historical stuff between my team and them. But they've had an unfortunate season in that they're starting to look like the Bournemouth that's been in the Premier League for years and years and years now, once again. And I think it's because they've got a few players back from injury. So they're starting to play a bit like that Eddie Howe team that we've seen for a few seasons now. But I think it's just a little bit too late for them. And when you look at the bottom of the table, you can't, there's a few teams in there that you can't believe aren't necessarily in the bottom three, such as, I guess, West Ham seem to have been fairly woeful all season, and I think if the two teams played each other now, Bournemouth would beat them. And the same again with Brighton. They've been pretty poor. But I guess that they've just scraped the points that they need to survive this season. So that bottom three looks fairly locked in.
I probably do agree. I think, to be honest, I think I've said this recently, either on this podcast or outside the podcast, but you look at the transfers that Bournemouth have made over recent seasons, they deserve to go down. Like, it's simple as that.
That is true. They have spent money, actually. They have spent money.
And if you can't sign good players, or you can't sign players who fulfill on any sort of potential, and you spend a lot of money on them as well, it's just a recipe for going down. And then you end up burdened with these players who are overpaid and you can't get them off the books. And, it can be a bit problematic. It's difficult to see how they necessarily deserve to stay up. They clearly have a manager who's good. He's done well for them over the past few years as Eddie Howe, but they just need to sort out the transfer problem. If they stay up, which seems unlikely, someone needs to come in and be like, right, let's rethink this. You keep signing crap players. This isn't going to work.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a knee-jerk thing to do in the Premier League.
Something's gone wrong with them though, hasn't it? Because they're not scoring. I'm just looking at some of the stats here. Like Josh King got 12 last season, got 5 this season. Callum Wilson got 14 and 12 assists last season. He's got 8 goals and 5 assists this team. Ryan Fraser, you get 14 assists, scored 7 last season. He's got 5 assists and scored 1 this season.
Well, that's part of the problem, though, isn't it? The Fraser thing, in that he's just he's refused to play for them, hasn't he? There was clearly a fallout there over how many games has he played this season? Has he played that many games this season for them at all?
He's played pretty much every game until the season restarted.
And then he pops his clogs.
Yeah,
we seem to be a bit discontent with him.
Yeah, his contract expired at the end of June, so
definitely.
Callum Wilson seems a bit hot and cold.
Yeah, he's not been as good as he has in previous seasons, where he was an FPL favourite for so long. Someone who could consistently get you goals and assists. It just hasn't worked out that way this season, has it?
No, and I think it was at the start of the season that Callum Wilson was just steadily batting away 5 points, 5 points, 5 points, 5 points, 13 points, 7 points, 6 points. I don't know if he's scored since then.
Yeah, they looked pretty good at the start of the season, did Bournemouth, but
yeah, he's scored 3 since then.
Yeah, all gone off the boil. Well, we'll find out soon enough. We'll see who gets sucked into that relegation race, and as we mentioned, how the top 4 race pans out. Let's look at our teams for this game week then, the one that's coming up, game week 37. Dave, what changes have you made for this one, if you've made any yet?
I haven't made any yet because it's a bit like, again, it's the Kevin De Bruyne thing, the Man City rotating and everything. I imagine De Bruyne will be back in now. I was seriously tempted to put David Silva in, and I wish I had, because they seem to be sending him off with a bit of a fanfare. It's almost like, let's make sure old David has a lovely end to his career at Man City. Let's tee him up for a few goals, give him a bit of a run of the park, and he's just taking the piss basically until the end of the season now. So there's almost a bit of a shout to drop him in for one of my Man City players. I have loaded on Man City though and Man United, 3 of each in my side at the moment. So it's kind of between swapping out a Man City player, either finding a way to get Sterling in, but if I put Sterling in, like I say, Mahrez will probably do something. and Greenwood and Rashford is the one that's annoying me on the other side, really. So Greenwood seems to be playing almost like a fullback for United. Is that right, Sam? Like while he's been playing, he's basically not been anywhere near the goal at all.
It doesn't make him a fucking fullback, though, does it?
But he covers at the back, doesn't he? He basically plays as an overlapping
He plays as a member of the team. No, he's still been. He's not been that quite as penetrative as he has in previous matches, but there was a few times in the match yesterday that he was getting into that position in the area where he starts throwing the step overs and defenders are going, have no idea which way he's going. So I think he's still getting into those same spots. I expect he'll probably be rested at the weekend. But I still think Greenwood will play the last two matches of the season because he's been one of our best performers since the league restarted.
Yeah, it was against Southampton. It was mentioned in the commentary as well. It wasn't really near the Southampton box at all, and he spent a lot of time just like double marking Redmond. I think they mentioned that he was kind of like he had to be covering back all the time, which I'm not sure if he kind of like switches a little bit with this kind of the opposition are almost a little bit like, if we're going to stand a chance in this game, we almost have to draw some of United's attacking threat away from the goal by pulling players like Greenwood back to their defensive duties, which you mentioned as a team, they have to do that. So it just doesn't seem to have been in and around the box as much as he was like the games before I dropped him in, which was when he scored. And then almost like on the opposite side of that, he drops away slightly and then Rashford attacks and now Rashford's been getting the goals. So that's the thing for me. It's like, which of those?
So basically what you're saying is it's your fault that the nation's footballing darling has not performed.
Yeah, I don't know if he's not performed or whether he's just got a slightly different duty in that team at the moment depending on who they're playing.
Yeah, possibly. If you looked at it as obviously Martial is the centre forward, Rashford is a left forward. Fernandes seems to be getting into the box just as much. So he's that sort of shadow striker in a way. It probably does mean that Greenwood has to drop a little bit further back. But then I think that's also been a culprit of who United have been playing. If Redmond has been noticed as one of the players that you need to keep an eye on, and same with Zaha, although obviously he was switching from wing to wing, then he's got to get stuck in there. We're in the business of winning.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether there'll be that same threat against West Ham.
Probably not.
I don't think so.
No. Did you, just to jump back to the match from yesterday, just because I know it'll trigger you, what did you think about VAR in the Man United Palace match?
Oh, well, it doesn't trigger me really. It's like it got to the point where it's like you're just a bit like, and then this is the point they obviously want people to get to, where you're just like, that's the decision. I mean, Roy Hodgson was like pretty furious about it, in that he was like saying that it's millimeters, and you're looking at him and I'm looking at him and thinking, yeah, it's millimeters, but then I guess that is offside, which is the logic that VAR wants you to apply to it. So it's like,
because it's the fucking logic.
Exactly.
It was it is perfect example.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It by the line that is drawn on the pitch, as long as if they're saying that is millimeters and everything else is perfectly accurate, so they know exactly when the ball is being kicked by the absolute fraction of a millisecond, which again, that's kind of up for debate, isn't it? Do they know that? And how do they know that? When the actual boot has come into perfect contact with the ball at that split second, then you're measuring that millimeter of the guy's boot that's over the line. Like you can do that with the freeze frame of the picture, but can you make sure that the ball is being kicked at that very, very millimeter? You can't. That split second, that you can't do that though. They're just looking at the picture and assuming that is exactly when the ball is being kicked, but. It is fractions and fractions and fractions of a situation. So it's, that's the situation it is. So it's just get on with it, don't you?
Life in
And
VAR.
you can't use the all the fans in the stadium issue anymore either, because we're all telly people.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I suppose the situation for the fans is like would have been just them knowing what's happening, what's going on. Some of the VAR stuff recently is like more being a case of there's still like it still seems to take them a long time. I thought it was meant to be like a clear and obvious thing sometimes as well, and yet there seemed to be a lot of decisions that were drawn out, and they'd be watching the VAR review would be going on for 3 to 4 minutes. And you'd be thinking, well, if it's taking this long to figure it out, like it can't be such like a clear and obvious one.
Well, that's the thing with VAR recently is that it's been making clear mistakes, and the various different associations have been coming out after matches, and we haven't really talked about it very much because I think it's just become fabric of Premier League life now. But people have been coming out afterwards and saying it was the wrong decision, and referee associations apologising and stuff like that. So. The fact that it was always going to be a myth, wasn't it? The VAR was going to resolve everything. It hasn't at all. And I think the big sort of question will be whether they can make it something that doesn't take 3 or 4 minutes every single time. Because if it does, then people aren't going to want it to stay because it's so disruptive to the flow of the match. If you're getting that every single time, if you can't just make a decision in 30 seconds, it gets frustrating, and it's just not as fun. It's not as flowing to watch. You getting into American football territory where you're getting a massive break every few minutes. It's not as good.
Yeah, we have drinks breaks now at the moment as well, which is like that. So that fragments the game up quite a bit. So there's a lot of disruption to the match. And like I said before, I just enjoyed watching the game as it was. I think the decisions went one way or another, and then unless it was something absolutely catastrophic. On a human error front, then I didn't see the need for it, and I think that's why technology needs to be the consideration needs to be in balance. As kind of you throw it into situations where it is like there has been a major error in this game by a referee, and there is a video referee who is aware of this and then can flag it quickly within the context of the game. And but the fact every goal almost goes to review now is just. I don't know. It just seems to take a little bit of the enjoyment away from it.
I found it interesting that FIFA called VAR a universal success, which I felt was twisting what it's been to an extreme degree. Yeah, you could argue that it has had some success, but I mean, at least 40% of football fans do not like it, and I would say that is not universal. But FIFA play by their own rules, don't they?
That's like a Trumpism, isn't it? Just going.
I think it has been a universal success.
It hasn't been a universal. You could argue it's been a success, but in no terms has it been universal. The amount of people that are pissed off at it, the amount of clubs and players that have highlighted issues, the amount of apologies there's been for incorrect results. It's not been universal. There've been successful.
There's been like 4 apologies, maybe. But you think about that, probably happened every single match day before VAR came along. And now you're getting that in an entire season. That's phenomenal, and it's set out to do a job, and it's done it brilliantly.
It hasn't though, because there's still a lot of uncertainties over how it's being used, and like what the video officials are meant to be making decisions on, and what they're not meant to be making decisions on. So that's been a shambles. They need to sort out that type of thing. So there needs to be more kind of hard and fast rules on when it's used, how it's used, for what decisions.
Okay. I was being mildly trollish there. I think the first for everything. The offsides, I think, have been a universal success because it, as you were saying before, Dave, it's either offside or it's not, and you can always argue, but it's only millimeters. It's like, well, right, do you want a 5 centimeter buffer? And as soon as you get to that buffer, you're back to the case of, are you in the buffer by millimeters? So you're either offside or you're not. Some will be exceptionally tight, some will be very clear and obvious.
I suppose it's just about the ball being kicked. That's the only thing I have with that. Is like, I know on the picture they say, look, you can see he's kicking the ball, but they can't really tell if that's exactly when the ball's being kicked, can they? Like, I mean, because surely there's we can't see the contact between the ball and the foot. And if you're measuring millimetres on one line, which you can clearly see where the attacker's foot is over the line, then you have to be able to see millimetres whether the ball has come in contact with his foot as well at that point, because it's when the ball is played. That's the rule. So that's the only thing for me. I guess if there was a buffer, it would be something to do with the fact that they can't actually measure when the ball is being played to that definitive, like they can with a line of someone crossing it and not crossing it. But
we're getting sucked into a big VAR debate here, which is unplanned. Thanks, Sam, for that.
Right, I'll just finish that off, Miles, by saying it wasn't a penalty.
Full circle.
What Zaha did was akin to when Pires stuck his foot out to clip someone's foot and fall over. It should have been done for simulation, really.
I always think like Zaha and there's people like Zaha and Vardy who they fall in a certain way, don't they? That kind of almost makes it look like it's always not a penalty as well.
Yeah.
Like Vardy has got the most theatrical dive I have ever seen. It's just like when you see it, you're just like, mate, come on, no one's giving that. And then even when you watch the replay, oh yeah, it was foul, but why did he make it look like a dive?
Yeah.
I think he's done his team, hasn't he? I mean, do you want to explain your changes, Sam? Do you want to say what you've done?
I'll probably be keeping it mostly the same. Last week I took out Mahrez and I can't remember who the striker was. Someone else up front, and brought Pulisic and Giroud in. And my thought process for everything, my choices over probably the last 3 weeks have been trying to pick the players who have got something to play for.
Hang on a minute, that's what I said. I think you're just copying me on the Giroud thing as well, aren't you?
No, because I put him in my team, and I've reaped the benefit.
Yeah, you have. I took it. I took him out. But to be fair, like the people I replaced him with did score, so it was a bit of a like for like. But I had him first.
Yeah, but Olivier come back. I put him back in. And you're using the argument saying, yeah, I've picked players that have got something to play for, where you took Giroud out, who has got something to play for, and replaced him with Jesus, who doesn't have anything to play for.
He's playing for his Man City career, is Jesus.
No, fair enough. Also put Pulisic in for Mahrez, because Mahrez didn't have anything to play for, Pulisic did. And was suitably rewarded with a goal for Giroud and an assist for Pulisic. Pulisic was playing really well. So yeah, keep it pretty much as it is. I think I might put my money where my mouth is and bring Aurier into my starting 11. So I'll have who have Sheffield United got this week? Everton, Arsenal. We've got Villa. Oh, I think I might play Martinez in goal. And then defence, we've got Maguire, Aurier, Bowley, Saïss, and Holgate. But I think Holgate came off after like 8. He started again yesterday. I think he came off after like 20 minutes. So he's no doubt injured again.
He is injured, yeah.
Yeah. Power 5 in midfield of Salah, De Bruyne, Martial, Pulisic, and Fernandes. Salah, I think he's obviously still wants to try and get that golden boot. I do think it's out of his reach at the moment, but you never know. So we'll keep him in. De Bruyne's De Bruyne. And I think he'll probably he should play the next 2 matches, because just keeping them fresh and in that game-ready scenario for when they get back to playing in Europe. And then up front, Jimenez, Giroud, and Nketiah. So strong bench. And that's Henderson on the bench as well. Strong bench, strong team. I'm happy.
Why change a winning formula, eh?
Yeah.
My team has undergone drastic changes because I have the luxury of a free hit. So I'm finally playing it. I have made, let me have a count here. Well, I've only got 4 players left. Let's put it that way. So the only players who survived my cull are Stekelenburg, Doherty, Saka, and Greenwood. 3 of those 4 obviously being dirt cheap players who I may as well just keep around because they keep the cost down, and Stekelenburg's just going to sit on the bench anyway, so why take him out? So I've tried a different tactic for this game week, because I realised Dave is 20 points ahead of me. Our teams aren't entirely dissimilar. We have some similarities there. if I'm going to catch him, I need to do something a bit different. So my current tactic, which is, I'm not sure if I'm going to go all out for it yet or go partially, but I've thrown in 3 Brighton players, right? Because and they're all defenders. So I've put in 3 Brighton defenders because they're playing against Newcastle at home. I'm backing the team against my team because we're just not good away from home. We travel anywhere, we struggle. We're traveling to the other side of the country where we're going to be absolutely screwed. So anything south of like Yorkshire, and Newcastle struggle, to be honest. So I'm looking at, I've got Dunk, Burn and Webster in, the big 3 of Brighton. I'm hoping they get me a good 18 points if I start all 3 of them. I might actually play a back 5, but I'm not sure yet. That seems a bit extreme. But I've also got Doherty and Johnny in there in my defence. So I've doubled up on Wolves with them playing Crystal Palace at home and them having something to play for, as we discussed. My attack and my midfield are actually pretty decent. I'm quite happy with it. So I don't know who I'm going to start yet, but I've got Salah, Sterling, Mahrez, Martial and Saka. And then I've got Vardy, Greenwood and Ings in up front. So a lot of form players, a lot of people who I haven't had all season who have kind of wanted to throw in, but just never got around to, like Salah. I don't think I've played Salah at all. So
who's your captain going to be?
I have no idea, to be honest. Probably Salah, maybe Salah, or maybe Martial. Because you guys keep captaining a Man United player, and I keep regretting not doing it. Maybe Martial. I don't know.
Are you not thinking, right, I've got 2 weeks to claw back 20 points. It's Hail Mary territory. Are you not tempted to captain like Lewis Dunk?
I mean, I'm very tempted, but I've already got that Brighton trio. I mean, it feels like, I guess I could just go all in, just like everything on Brighton, you know?
It sounds like you've done that already.
Well, I haven't I've saved that captain, you know? I haven't quite gone all in. I've gone almost all in.
Yeah.
But not quite all in.
You've used a triple captain, haven't you?
Yeah, I've used it, yeah. I used it on, I don't think it was bad. I think I used it on Mane and I got some points. Not amazing. Didn't get 78 points for Antonio like that dickhead over the weekend, but I got some points. But yeah,
I used mine on Callum Wilson.
Didn't you get 2 points?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
the one blip to your season, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So it's all or nothing for me. We could be sitting here this time next week, and I could be riding high on my Brighton unicorn ahead of Dave. But I suspect it won't go to plan. But we'll soon find out.
God loves a try, mate.
Yeah. Gotta try this Hail Mary. But let's wrap this up. Dave, Sam, thanks very much for joining me from your homes today. Podcast listeners, YouTube viewers, you can get in touch by tweeting your fantasy football thoughts with the hashtag UKFFS. We'll be back same time next week for one final weekend of FPL back action. See you then.
Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, follow on Spotify, or however you listen to podcasts on your favourite platform. Leave a review if you liked it, and if you didn't, what are you still doing here? Check out Goal for your daily dose of football news from the Premier League and around the world. Thanks for listening.